Hi and welcome to ChamberLIVE, the latest edition of our HR forum, brought to you by the East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce and sponsored by our friends at Forbes Solicitors. The views expressed in this webinar don't necessarily represent the views of the East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce, and all facts are believed to be correct at the time of recording, which is the 30th of September 2020. Lots to cram in today. We're focusing on recruitment. 3 excellent speakers, all with views on different elements of the recruitment process, from finding the right candidates to making sure they are what and who they say they are. First of all, as ever, we at the Chamber are very grateful to our sponsors for supporting our events, and Forbes have been really hands-on in supporting us with this new HR forum and providing some really relevant content for the group. With her top tips and employment law considerations for recruitment, I'm delighted to welcome back Emma Swan. Emma's a partner at Forbes and head of commercial employment. She works with clients of a variety of sizes in contentious and non-contentious matters. Key sectors that she works with include manufacturing, construction and hospitality. And she works with her clients not only as an employment lawyer, but also as an accessible and attentive business advisor. So delighted to hand over to Emma. Over to you.
Good morning, Simon. Thank you very much. We're just going to get my slides up and we shall start talking through the top 10 tips that I have for you today. And the things I'm going to be covering really are some of the top tips for successful recruitment, some of the employment law considerations that you need to be thinking about, some of those potential risks during the recruitment process, and some of the practical considerations as well. So there's just a little summary on the next slide of what we're going to be talking about. Just catching up slightly. Thank you. And then if we move on to the first tip, is to be clear about your process. Now, some of the things I'm going to talk about this morning might seem very obvious, but you will be amazed at how many times people are going through a recruitment process and forget some of these things, and it can come back to bite them in terms of either recruiting the wrong person or indeed finding themselves facing tribunal proceedings. So it's really important to get it right from the absolute start. It sounds simple, but it really is going to make it a more efficient process and more structured. So just a few things to think about in that process. First of all, making sure that you actually identify your vacancy properly, and you really need to think about what position you require and what basis you may require it, and is there actually a genuine vacancy. And at the moment, that's a really important consideration to make, because you may already have people in your business who are on a fixed term. For example, they might have been brought in for a particular project, or they might be covering maternity leave, for example, and they may have the skill set that you need, that you can simply move them over rather than actually having a genuine vacancy. So please think about that. Make sure that you have updated your job description and your person specification, because it's really important that the prospective employees who are applying for that role understand what you are looking for and have accurate and up-to-date information. It's also a really good opportunity to fine-tune what you are looking for. If you've had someone leave that role and you didn't feel that they were particularly effective, is it actually because you didn't have the right job description, the right specification to hire for the right skills? So make sure that you've got that. It also means that when you're drafting that you can make sure that you don't have anything in there that is going to put you at risk of discriminating against certain individuals. And we're going to come to discrimination in a minute. It also gives you the opportunity, when you're updating your job description and your person specification, to then think about what your selection criteria is going to be. When you've got those 2 documents right, it will almost do your job for you in setting out the selection criteria and the types of questions that you are going to need through your recruitment process. So that's the next thing to be thinking about. You then need to be thinking about how you are going to be advertising. Are you going to have a very narrow area that you want to be looking for? Is it a specific skilled job that you can only look in a certain area for? Are you going to try and headhunt particular people who you've come across? or do you want to make it as widely available as possible? And that will then help you contact the recruiters to make sure that you are sending it to the right recruiters to get the right exposure, or you have a go at headhunting a specific person that you may have come across yourself if your costs are an issue for your recruitment process. You then need to have a think about how you are going to process those CVs and those applications if you are doing it internally, to make sure that you've got an efficient process and that you then can make sure that you are dealing things in a timely way, particularly if you have set a deadline for applications. Make sure that you then adhere to it and you process it and get back to people in a timely fashion as well. It's also important at this stage to be thinking about who you're going to have on your interview panel. Is it going to be more than one person so that you've got perhaps a couple of objective views that can be discussed in due course, or are you going to have one person? Is it going to be the line manager who is interviewing for the role that they want to replace? Is it going to be HR, or is it going to be someone more senior? So give a little think about who is going to be the most appropriate person to recruit for that role. You also should start thinking at this stage about what you are looking at offering, and also whether you're going to be thinking about including a probation period, because they're questions that you're likely to then be facing in the interview process. And again, I'll come back to offering. Tip number 2 on our next slide is the key consideration, really, from my perspective as an employment lawyer, and that is being aware of the risk of discrimination. I'll just let the slides catch up with us slightly. So top tip 2. Thank you.
Sorry, while we chat, have you, Emma, is your microphone sort of being, it sounds like something's brushing against your microphone.
Oh, right, okay. It might just be my notes. I will try and not get any nearer.
Thanks.
And so top tip 2, be aware of the risk of discrimination. And it's really important to be aware that even through the selection and the application process, the rules, the laws around discrimination are going to apply to your business. So it's really important to be familiar with them. If you are in HR in particular, you should be aware of the Equality and Human Rights Commission Code. And the relevant section is Chapter 16, and that talks about job descriptions. And it really flags up how important it is that you use appropriate job titles, that you should make sure that you are not showing any predetermined bias. So, for example, suggesting that a role would be more appropriate for a female as opposed to a male. You should accurately describe the job. You should make sure that you're including relevant tasks and duties. If you include things that are irrelevant, you may then find that you're discouraging people from applying, and that may prevent people with particular disabilities. For example, if you say that someone needs to drive for that role, but actually that is an irrelevant part, you may put off somebody whose disability doesn't allow them to drive, and that may then mean that you fall foul of discrimination. It's also important that you are going to be able to objectively justify parts of your job description. So you shouldn't overstate those occasional duties, again, such as driving, when it's going to prevent someone from applying. If you need someone to be able to drive, you need to be able to explain why. Not in the job description, but you need to be confident that as a business, you can then explain to a tribunal, for example, why it is critical to the role that they are able to drive, as opposed to it just being something that you would like them to be able to have if from time to time you need them to run an errand that isn't going to be as critical to the role. And it also says in the code that you should be focused on outcomes. And this is to prevent unnecessary focus, again, on a particular way of performing a task that may prevent a person from being able to perform the task. So, for example, someone, again, who may have an underlying health condition, if you're being very prescriptive about how they do something and you don't need to, they can just do it in whichever way they see fit, then you should not be prescribing that in the job description either. Tip number 3, again, relates to discrimination. This is the obligation under the Equality Act to make reasonable adjustments where someone is considered to be a disabled person. And it's really important that an employer doesn't discriminate or victimise somebody in the arrangements that they are making to decide who they offer employment to. Now, the word arrangements is defined quite broadly in the Equality Act, and it can be taken to mean a number of things. So what I would say is that you need to be mindful of someone who hasn't even applied for a job, but theoretically they could bring a discrimination claim in respect of the arrangements that you are making. So, for example, a disabled person might complain that a reasonable adjustments haven't been made to enable them to attend an interview, or a woman with childcare responsibilities might complain of indirect sex discrimination if she's only offered an interview in the evening, because otherwise she would be looking after her children. So these are people who might not even make an application or be successful on interview, but can still bring a claim because they're saying that they've been prevented from applying because of the arrangements that you are using. Tip number 4. You will hear me saying this over and over again as a lawyer, and it's only when you ring me with a tribunal claim that you'll probably realise how important this is and why I bang on about it. But make sure that you have a paper trail and you have things recorded, because that is going to help you later either to prevent someone from bringing a claim. So if they're threatening to, and you're able to demonstrate by showing them the clear records and the evidence, they may not even bring a claim. Or if they do pursue a claim, you'll have clear evidence to support what you have done, the decisions that you have taken, and you're able to justify why you made those decisions and be successful in a tribunal. It's really important to realise that the records that you keep through the recruitment process are going to be disclosable. So if you do go to a tribunal, then you will be able to, you will have to show the tribunal and the other side those documents, but also someone can make a subject access request under data protection provisions, and under that they will be able to see what you have been recording. So it's really important to make sure that you keep that paper trail. Number 5. Again, this is something to be aware of. Under the Equality Act, from the 1st of October 2010, there are exceptions where you are going to be allowed to effectively discriminate because of certain things. So, for example, an occupational requirement is one of those things, whereby if you think that you specifically need someone of a set gender or be able to speak a particular language for that role, and you can justify that, then you will be okay to say in your job application, your job description process, that you are specifically looking for someone of a particular gender, someone who can speak a particular language, for example. Another exception is where you look at positive action, and it can be in certain circumstances lawful for you to positively be encouraging certain people to apply for the roles because, for example, you want to improve the number or increase the number of people from ethnic minorities or a particular sex. If we move on to tip number 6, and I'm afraid I'm whizzing through these a little bit because we are close to time, is taking care over references. And I know that one of the other speakers is going to look at DBS checks and what have you, but it's really important that you make sure that offers that you make to individuals are conditional on you receiving satisfactory references. Now, a lot of employers nowadays do want to stick to providing references that only talk about the facts, the dates that someone was employed, the role that they undertook, and won't go into any more details. But there is no harm in asking for additional information. What I would suggest you do is that you send the old employer a copy of the job description and person specification that you have for the current role that you're recruiting to, asking them to provide a reference based on what you are recruiting that individual to do, rather than just sticking to the facts. Now, they may not, but it's worth asking, as I say. In certain professions, ex-employers are also obliged to give you additional information. So if you are in one of those sectors, for example, if you're in professional financial services, that is one area where there are specific reference requirements. So make sure you're familiar with those and make sure that you get an ex-employer to stick to giving you that information. Tip number 7 is that it is very important to give appropriate feedback. So tip number 7, we would always recommend that you give unsuccessful candidates feedback. Now, if you have a lot of job applications that come through, and you simply write back to some saying, unfortunately, you've not been successful, and then you're not going to be offering them an interview, then that is acceptable. Just make sure that in the background, you have got reasons why you've rejected certain applications. If you've got an objective scoring process that you're going to be able to rely on. But if you then do have an interview process, make sure that you are giving that feedback as to why someone hasn't been successful. It's really important as well to think about if there are any specific areas that you need to be able to justify. So for example, if someone has tipped up an interview and said that they can't drive, they haven't got a current driving license, and the job is for a role that relies very heavily on someone being able to drive for that job, then you need to be able to explain, obviously, that they've been unsuccessful because they can't meet a main duty, and also go on to explain, to justify why it is that that role needs that driving qualification. Number 8, just whizzing on, we would strongly recommend including a probation period. Whilst for the majority of employees, you've got 2 years until they've got the right to bring unfair dismissal claims, and effectively quite a long period of time for you to make sure that they are suitable. We would always recommend that you have a clear probation period, normally a month, sometimes up to 3 months, and can be longer, whereby the employee understands that they are going to be subject to a review at the end of that. You can ensure that you have a shorter notice period in that period of time. So for example, in your probation period, you may stick to the minimum 1 week notice, and then say that once someone has passed that, you are going to increase their notice to a month or longer if that's suitable for their role. And also make sure that they understand what you are going to be assessing on. The critical thing with probationary periods, though, is that as an employer, you do stick to it. As you're coming to the end of the probation period, you do have that review meeting, you do give that feedback, and you do then confirm whether someone has passed it, whether someone has had their probation period extended, which you are entitled to do. Just make sure you make it clear that it has been extended, and accordingly the notice period will also be extended. And also make sure that if you are then saying thanks but no thanks, that you give the reasons why they haven't been successful. Tip number 9 is that it is really important for you to be aware of the line managers who are involved in a recruitment process, to be aware that there is a risk that someone can still bring a claim for discrimination even if they have not been employed by you. Just by holding a recruitment process, you are exposing the business to a risk if you don't follow the rules and the laws. It's really important that people in that process are aware of that. And finally, to finish off, because I think I'm virtually at my 15 minutes, tip number 10 is really, I can't emphasize enough how important it is to think practically. Plan ahead, stick to your timings, Take advice if you're not sure whether you are including job descriptions and job specifications, things there appropriately, or if you're concerned that something may be discriminatory and you want a little bit of help in putting together a business case behind that advice, behind that job description, on why you can objectively justify specific skills that you need. Make sure your managers are trained, make sure that they understand equality and diversity in the recruitment process. Make sure that people who are going through that process are clear what it understands. Make sure you're advertising effectively to get the best possible candidates, and make sure that you communicate with them. And then there's just a summary slide for you all, which I believe is going to be sent out to you afterwards. And just a bit of a tick box for you to make sure that you are familiar with what you should be thinking about in the recruitment process. Thanks, Simon. If there are any questions, then happy to answer those now.
Yes, anyone got any questions? Just unmute yourself if you've got a question, to put it directly to Emma. I think there'll be a few people scared, Emma, sort of not realising maybe that, that you don't even have to be employed by a company to be able to bring a tribunal case. It's quite alarming, I think.
Yes, I think it hit the headlines probably about getting on for about 10 years ago now, when the Equality Act first came out. There's quite a lot of commentary of individuals who would be applying for roles and they'd send the same CV, and then they'd either change their nationality, they would change their name, they would change their sex, they'd change their age, but effectively send the same CV with different names, different age, etc. And then were bringing claims as a result of that. And it hit the headlines, 10 years ago, about how effective these individuals were. Now, fortunately, we've got rid of some of those people who we would say are effective litigants, who consistently do that. You can track now people who are doing it for the wrong reasons, but employers do sometimes forget that the recruitment process is something that they've got to think about equality laws. But I think on the whole that most employers now understand that you have to be fair, you have to be equal, you want a diverse workforce because of all the benefits that brings. So although it is scary, and my job is to scare you a little bit, because then you come and ask for my advice, but it's more to be aware and mindful that there are those rules in the background. But most employers do things properly because they want the best person for the job.
Okay, well, you've scared Justine as well on chat. Justine asks about probation period. There's a 6 months. Do you think that could be too long?
I think it's depending on your roles. For your more senior roles, I think 6 months for senior people to really make a difference to the business is good 6 months. For other roles where you are going to be able to establish that within 3 months, within 1 to 3 months, they have got the skills that you need, that they're delivering the service that you want to, then I think 3 months tops is going to be appropriate. But there's no legal requirement to even have a probationary period, so your 6 months is okay if you want to stick to that. And as I say, you've almost got up to 2 years when the right to unfair dismissal kicks in to be able to really understand if someone has got the job. Because sometimes, let's face it, you can get someone in who you think is absolutely brilliant, they really go to town impressing you, they pass the probation period, and then slowly the performance starts lagging off a little bit, and you want to be able to nip that in the bud even if the probation period has lapsed. But 6 months is okay, but it does feel a little bit excessive unless it's for a senior person.
Great.
Okay, Justine.
Thanks, Emma.
Yeah, and Ian's got a cute doggy bobbing around in the background as well.
We love dogs on our webinars. Thank you, Emma. I'm going to crack on because I'm conscious of time. Sticking with recruitment, we might be blown away by the CV, maybe really impressed at interview, but what if all isn't as it appears? Our next speaker, Jack Mellor, definitely advocates digging a little deeper. According to our background checks on him, He's the managing director of one of the UK's leading safeguarding and background checking businesses based in Blackburn. He's also vice chair of the Criminal Records Trade Body, the CRTB, where he uses his knowledge of this area to influence changes that help businesses to improve the quality of their hires whilst reducing risk. So, Jack, over to you, sir.
Marvellous. Thank you so much, Simon, for that glowing introduction. Very nice to meet you all. This is Personnel Checks and I guess my own sort of first foray into the world of the East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce. So thank you very much for having us, and I'm very pleased to be speaking here today. I'm just going to go ahead and share my slide deck, and if I could ask you, Simon, to sort of initiate the questions, the multiple choice questions that we put forward at some point, that would be great. I think that we've put them all up together there really, and that is just I guess questions that are designed to get you all thinking about what background screening looks like in the businesses that you're running or that you're working in, and should hopefully frame some of the general context of some of the topics that I'm going to talk about there. So please feel free to have a bit of a look through those and answer them. What I'm going to do is just do a brief introduction to our company and then jump into the wider content of what I'm going to say today. So as Simon mentioned, Personnel Checks is a business, and we are providing background screening services to customers all over the UK in a plethora of different industries. Our objective and our mission as a business is to provide HR and recruitment decision makers within businesses with as much of the most relevant information possible for them to be able to make a sound and safe suitability or recruitment decision on the people that they're bringing into their business. So we are positioned nicely along that HR pipeline, and we are strongly advocating and want to talk about today the benefits that background screening can have in your business, and want to introduce you to maybe some background checks that you might not have thought of doing before. We employ about 20 people in Blackburn, and we're on the top floor of the Cathedral Quarter building opposite the train station. As soon as restrictions are lowered, we'd be very welcome to invite anyone to come and have a chat with us and come and see what we've got going on there. And finally, we are part of the Cummins Mellor family of businesses. So Personnel Checks was essentially born out of Cummins Mellor Recruitment, which is maybe a name that you'd be a bit more familiar with in the local sort of Lancashire business spectrum. So, as Simon mentioned, my role there is the MD, and it's my job to keep the thing running day by day, but I also enjoy getting out and meeting with customers and potential new prospects who are interested in the world of background screening. And as Simon mentioned, I'm also vice chair of the CRTB, which is a relatively new organisation, a forming trade body, and our mission is to really try and promote the safeguarding agenda of the UK, but also push for some positive changes for things like digital identity and improved customer experience when it comes to background screening, because I guess one of the issues that most people see is that it can be quite slow, it can be quite confusing, it's lots of forms to fill out. So we're trying to make positive change, lobby central government to make the whole thing much simpler and much smoother. So I'm going to crack on with my slide. I'm not sure if people can see my slides with the poll over the top there.
Yeah, the polls, I've taken the poll down for everyone now, so okay. You're fully visible.
It's, I guess it's just on my side, but I guess I haven't voted. Anyway, I can see my slides behind it, so that's fine.
Just close the poll and it'll go. Just close the top. Ah,
yeah, there we go. Got it. That's done. Perfect. Sorry about that. So just to position where we are right now, obviously the HR working world post-COVID, I'm not quite sure we can say we're post-COVID yet, but in the way of the world at the moment, looks a little bit different to how it looked before. So it's important just to frame that context before we jump into the main bulk of the content. We all know that unemployment has increased dramatically, and companies have been faced with tough decisions around reducing costs, and quite often a lot of that energy has been focused on staffing costs, as it's always a very high cost in businesses. Obviously, we're all sat here virtually right now. Remote working has become normal, and for many companies like ourselves, we have embraced this. But what that's meant is that anyone actually bringing new staff on now, or even, you know, managing the engagement of their existing workforce, I think it's provided a whole new set of challenges, really. If you're trying to engage a team, you know, over a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams call, can be a little bit more difficult. If you're not there in the office, you can't gauge those sort of physical reactions from people. So just an example of how things are changing. But what we are seeing at the moment is that there are absolutely opportunities arising in industries for employment to, you know, be on the increase. We're seeing that in our customer base, and we're seeing that the re-employment or the looking at staff who can help to grow their businesses as we try to move out of this pandemic is on the up now. So the employee onboarding experience is changing, and I believe will change fundamentally for the future. And background screening is clearly going to play a big part in that. So I guess I want to just talk a little bit about what we see in the types of companies out there, and those types of companies that are doing background screening. And that's to some extent the reason why I wanted to do the poll at the beginning, because it almost helps segment the audience here into the different categories that I'm going to talk about. So background screening checks and why everybody should be conducting them. So what we see are 3 different types of companies in our customer base, the 3 different ways of segmenting it, not by industry, not by, you know, the amount of checks that they're doing, anything like that, but the reasons why they would come to a decision that background checking is important for them. So first of all, you've got regulation in certain industries. Buzzwords like Ofsted and CQC qualifications and FCA regulations for Financial Conduct Authority, maybe companies working in aviation, companies working in, you know, security, will have certain standards that they need to follow and guidelines that they need to adhere to. And those guidelines will quite often enforce the requirement and the recommendation for a fit and proper assessment of the people that you're bringing into those environments. So, put simply, there's a fairly big chunk of people out there or businesses out there in the UK that are doing background screening because regulation says that they must. Then we've got the notion of unregulated industry. So businesses who aren't subject to those types of guidelines and those types of regulations. And between that, you've got the unregulated industries that do, and then the unregulated industries that do not. And we can see, based on some, you know, estimates in the data that we've collected over the years of doing this, that the former significantly outweighs the latter significantly outweighs the former. So we've got a much smaller proportion of unregulated industries carrying out background screening than those that don't. Those that say, it's not for me, or I don't quite understand it, or it's slow, or it's expensive, or I don't see the benefit. So wherever you position yourself, or wherever your business positions yourself within this map, hopefully what I'm going to say next is going to be of interest to you in some way. And the message that we're trying to put forward is, you know, for the regulated industries that must, absolutely, we are here and we can help and we can provide support with that. And for those unregulated industries, you know, if you do, then that's great. And we think that you're on the path to, you know, successful and really effective recruitment and onboarding process. For those that don't, hopefully we can put forward some arguments that are going to convince you. Now, what we see quite often is that the argument that's used to convince people to do background screening is to focus on 2 key things. So that would be people working with children and people working with vulnerable adults. And absolutely, and to be honest, those arguments have kind of been done to death, and I don't want to talk about that too much today, because whilst working with children and vulnerable adults is 100% absolutely crucial that you've got the right people in, quite often those industries are going to be covered by the regulation. I want to focus a little bit more on the thing that is probably going to touch more of the smaller businesses, and I guess a lot of businesses in Lancashire as well. And it's ultimately making sure that there is no fraud carried out on your business by the people that you employ. So a few stats here. 2019 saw the highest volume of cases ever recorded to the National Fraud Database. Identity fraud cases made up to 61% of total cases recorded. So identity fraud, somebody masquerading as somebody else, not able to prove who they really are, and maybe using somebody else's identity for the purpose of gaining employment. The most prevalent form of dishonest action was theft of cash from an employer. The most prevalent form of deceit was concealed adverse credit history. So if somebody's maybe been bankrupt before, they've had a number of CCJs, they've got unprecedented debt levels, people trying to hide that from their employer. And then finally, false qualifications and false references have seen an increase over the last year. And you know, I think that many of you sat on this call will maybe know of a case where something like this has happened: identity fraud, theft, dishonesty around credit history, or dishonesty around qualifications or references or something like that. Whether it's happened in your business or whether you know that it's happened in someone else's business, the truth of the matter is that it is going on out there. Our message is that we want to help Lancashire get back to work by helping you protect your business. Ultimately, this is about protecting businesses. Every business has got some very valuable and sometimes vulnerable assets, and what we like to do is we like to put those right at the center and then think of all the mechanisms that we can use to surround those. So you might think, for example, you know, locking up your premises at night is a way of protecting that. Having putting your cash in a safe in the evening is a way of protecting that. Of course, there are physical ways in which you can protect your business, but when you start to bring people into your organization through recruitment, it's absolutely paramount that you've got some certainty and you've got some confidence in that person, and ultimately with the hope that they are not going to attack or threaten those vulnerabilities and those things that we hold so dear and want to protect so much. So cash, people having access to buildings, all that kind of stuff are very traditional ways in which we see businesses being defrauded. I'm just trying my best to keep my eye on time as well. 12 minutes in, so I will whiz through. How can I protect my business is a question that you're asking yourself here. So what can I actually do to go ahead and improve the protection and be proactive on that before we bring people into the business, employees into the business? What can I do? Now, a traditional one I'm going to start with is criminal record, or what are called DBS checks. I'm sure that is the most common form of background screening that we all know. There are 3 different levels of DBS check: a basic check, a standard check, and an enhanced check. There's a common misconception that people will just sort of think, oh, you know what, I'm going to go for the enhanced check because it's going to show me most information. Well, unfortunately, you can't just do that. You have to qualify and you have to satisfy certain eligibility criteria in order to do standard or enhanced checks. So they're only available for certain roles. And if you've ever got any uncertainties on those, our helpline can certainly provide advice on what the correct level of check for you would be. So if you're ever struggling with that, you can reach out to us. But criminal record checks are a banker. They're a very safe bet. They provide you with, as a recruitment decision maker, information on convictions, cautions, warnings, reprimands, spent and unspent convictions. At the differing levels, you get a little bit more information. And there's also the possibility to search any barred lists that staff may be registered on. Adverse financial checks, I alluded to this before, theft of cash and people trying to hide their financial information. I wonder how many people have brought a member of staff into their business and provided them with access to the company bank account, or the key to the till where the cash is kept overnight. Did you carry out an adverse financial check on that member of staff? Because if you had done, and then you got the certificate back to say this person is in debt, would you make the same decision in terms of giving them the codes to your bank account, giving them a company credit card, giving them this, that, and the other? It may be worth doing that one check to save you a lot of time and a lot of pain afterwards in the process that sort of falls out from there. There are a few other types of checks that I'm just going to put up here as well. Media checks, looking at any publications, newspapers, magazines that may have published some bad press about the person that you're going to recruit. Be quite interesting to know what that is. Has this person lied on their CV about the grades that they got at school or university? And then finally, that notion of identity check. Is this person really who they say they are? By being proactive and by asking the question, do I know all of this information? You as HR professionals, you as hiring managers are going to put yourself in a much stronger position to make a sensible and sound decision for your business. So to all chamber members that are on this call, we would love to offer anybody who's on this call and anybody who is a chamber member a free sort of 30-minute consultation with one of our safeguarding experts to just talk about background screening. If you want to know more about the basics, the fundamentals like DBS checks, for example, and what levels are right for me, we can discuss that. If you're already doing that and you want to strengthen and deepen your investigations into members of staff before they come on board, or you'd like to think about general compliance management and how often and how regularly I should be rechecking my staff as well, because people's criminal record histories and people's financial histories are a moving target, they evolve. We'd be happy to sit down with you and use the experience that we've got of working with our customers to offer some advice there. And anyone who is a chamber member will also benefit from a reduced admin fee that we place on those checks. So we can do them for you. And if you decide that you want to work with us on that, then there will be a reduced admin fee in line with your volumes for all chamber members. So final thing to say, we are your local safeguarding experts, helping to protect thousands of businesses from hiring the wrong person. We're in Blackburn and we're looking to create as many super partnerships with local businesses as much as possible. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more, these links will all be clickable after they are circulated in PDF format afterwards. You can check out our website, you can send me an email, or you can reach out to me on the social channels. And I'll be very happy to have those conversations with you and see if background screening can either be introduced or strengthened within your own business. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time. I will be very happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thanks, Jack. Christine, do you want to unmute and put your question to Jack, and then I guess Emma can come in on it as well?
Yeah, I want to know, do we have to inform our employees or prospective employees that you are actually doing these checks on them?
So, checks can't be carried out on a subject unless they give their consent. So you can't just sort of sneakily run a criminal record check on somebody without them knowing about it. And there are even rules in place to the extent where if you do it, let's take a DBS check, for example. When you do the DBS check, the actual certificate which provides the information on that person's criminal record history is actually, it's physically posted to their house, and that is a process that's in place with the DBS. One of the processes that I'm trying to change in my role on the trade body, the CRTB, let's make it an electronic certificate, for example, so we're not sending things through the mail anymore. The point I'm trying to make is the data of someone's background, their criminal record, their financial history, it belongs to them at the end of the day. So all we can do as employers is we can ask for that information, and we can make it part of our onboarding policy, our suitability policy as employers, that we require a job offer is subject to a reference, a job offer is subject to a suitable criminal record check result coming back. If employees are unwilling to provide that, then you could interpret that as a message that actually in the end maybe they're not quite the right person for us, that they're not willing to share this information with us. Therefore, am I as a hiring manager prepared to take that risk on them? So we're not forcing checks on anybody. We're implementing them at a business level, and then we're asking new recruits to go through that process.
Emma, do you want to? I mean, in my previous job, I just used to Google people. Is that allowed?
You shouldn't be doing it unless you have got something in your data protection policies. So, for example, the main one is your privacy notice that you will have maybe on your website, so that applicants who are applying directly to you can see how their information is going to be processed just through the application process itself, never mind the checks that you're then going to be doing. But people do Google, they do check Instagram, they do check Facebook, and I think employees generally, prospective candidates, are more mindful of that nowadays as well, to make sure that they've got the privacy settings themselves there. Arguably, if they have got a public account and you've checked it, then you've got an argument that it was publicly available, but you should still be flagging up that you are going to be doing those checks. Like your style though, Simon.
Wow. I'm going to Google you later, Emma.
You just find bad hair shots.
Just to come back on that very quickly, Emma, doing what are called social media checks is the most contentious subject in this industry at the moment, and there's a very interesting conversation going on around that. There's no clarity really on it yet, and the guidance around how and if you should be doing them is still quite fuzzy, but it's something that we're providing, we're very interested on, and we're trying to provide a little bit of thought leadership on that, but it's still quite early to know exactly what the right thing to do is. So we've taken the stance to currently not offer that as a commercial service in our business. We don't do social media checks. We don't think the industry's quite ready for it yet. Can you Google somebody? I don't think I could give an answer to that with the sort of legal backing of what Emma said there, but we know that it does happen.
Yeah, just 2 points on the Googling. Before I worked for Info, we placed a senior contractor with a bank, and they Googled him because he had a 12-month gap on his very great CV, and what they found out was pretty horrendous, the reason for that gap. And we were then in a very tricky situation of feeding back to the candidate to say, yeah, you can do the job standing on your head, and they absolutely loved you, but because of what they found on Google, they wouldn't be in a position to offer you the role. How do you go about, is there a way to frame that? I suppose, or it's information that's readily available on Google. It was a news story without going into too much detail. Yeah. But, how do you frame that with I suppose, feeding back to the candidate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that when we move outside of the world of DBS checks, because the DBS, the Disclosure and Barring Service, is a governmental organisation which is an extension of the Home Office essentially. They've got great connections and collaborations in with central government. So what that means is that part of the DBS checking process is governed by legislation, namely the Rehabilitation of Offenders Act. So we've got some law that we can read and use and interpret to define what our processes are internally. For example, you can't just say we will never employ anybody who's got a criminal record. You can't do that. You've got to make a decision with a certain amount of suitability and proportion in mind. When you apply that thinking to other checks which haven't got this sense of legal regulation around them, like a social media check, as I say in sort of air quotes there, one of the things we're advocating more for is guidance on how we should be using that information, because at the end of the day, a company like ours, our purpose is to put the information in the hands of the hiring managers, and then it's down to the companies themselves to write their policies, to write their guidance, to try and come up with a framework of how we will use the information that's put in front of us to then go ahead and make either a recruitment or a suitability decision. So the short answer is, we put that on you and ask you guys to decide that. But we're also beating the drum with industry and, in this background screening community, which is quite active, for working together and sharing information. So it's almost like compliance through community, which is a really strong idea that we're trying to push forward at personnel checks. That would be a really interesting conversation to take offline and look to maybe see how do we put in place some kind of policy that helps you make a decision based on unregulated information.
And then just very, very quickly on the social media side, my wife's a contractor and she interviewed for a job at the start of the year, and she had a catch-up call with the agency on the Monday, And they said, did you have a good weekend? And she said, yeah, I took the kids out. And then the guy on the phone said, oh yeah, I saw that on your Facebook. And then completely backtracked.
Well, interesting that I read an article. Sorry, I don't want to take it too much time. There's 2 seconds, but I read an article on LinkedIn this morning, which was about employees or prospective employees background checking the companies that they want to go and work for. Would you want to go and work in a company who've been looking at your social media profile over the weekend? Maybe you would. Maybe that's what you're into and you want to put yourself out to the world and live a very public life. But maybe you wouldn't, and you'd maybe feel like that's a bit of a violation of your privacy and overstepping the boundaries. So background screening and that notion of recruitment decision-making, it has to be a two-way street. It can't just be us as employers saying rules, 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 guidance, guidance, guidance. We've got to look for a sensible decision coming back from the candidate as well. Because an interview or a recruitment process has to have that two-way feel. It can't just be one person doing all the talking and another person just saying yes. If it is, maybe it's not quite the right role for the candidate.
Yeah. Cheers, thank you.
Really interesting conversation. Thank you, Jack, and thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Emma. If anyone, I'm going to move on just because I've got one eye on timing. We're going to finish slightly later. It's probably going to be, well, we'll definitely be wrapped up by midday. The whole thing's being recorded though, so if you do have to leave to go on to something else, then you can always catch up on the last 15 minutes on YouTube. So with that in mind, I shall move on to our next speakers. So we've covered the recruitment process once we have a candidate, but what about finding the right candidate? One Lancashire company, we're going to meet them now, convinced that they've got maybe an answer to that with their Talent Academy. We'll hear from Danielle Brown. Danielle's the Service Operations Manager at Infor. She's previously worked in marketing and PR roles within tech, and she's a keen advocate for women in STEM roles. She's the Programme Manager of the Infor Talent Academy, and she's been working with the junior engineers to help upskill them to become Amazon Web Service cloud practitioners. We've just heard from, and we'll hear from him again, Andrew Curzon. Andrew's Head of Recruitment at Infor. He's worked in the recruitment industry for many years. He now works with the Talent Academy graduates to ensure that they secure opportunities that match their ambitions. He also works with organisations to help them secure diverse and ambitious graduate talent, and will also meet some of the programme's graduates as well. So to take us through this academy and some of the benefits of it and some of the outcomes, I'm going to introduce first of all Danielle Brown.
Thanks, Simon, and thanks for the lovely intro. Hi everyone, it's lovely to be here today. Can everyone see my screen okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. So hi everyone, I'm Danielle Brown. I'm the Service Operations Manager over at Infor Group. You would typically find us hanging out in the East Lancashire Chambers Engineering and Manufacturing Forum, as our background is in industrial digital technologies. But Simon and Debbie very kindly invited us to join the HR Forum today so we can talk to you about one of the projects that we've been working on, which is the Infor Talent Academy. Now, before I get started and tell you a bit more info about the Academy, I'm just going to ask Simon to quickly launch a poll for me, which just asks the question about diversity within your companies and if you need to diversify your talent pipeline. So while you're answering that, I'll just move on and do a bit of a brief intro to who we are. So we're Infor Group, and our main service is industrial digital technology. So we work with SMEs across the Northwest to help them bring Industry 4 into their business. And one thing that a lot of our clients highlighted is that they can't find the right people to be able to implement these technologies. So they're very aware, especially with COVID and the need for everything to be moving onto the cloud, that they need to drive a digital transformation agenda, but they can't access the right talent in order to drive that within their business. So what we find is that it's not just about finding people who are fresh out of uni with the latest qualifications. Companies now need to hire people that have got the right blend of that academic background, the qualifications, but also have technical expertise and soft skills. And here at Infor, we call that being work ready. So the Infor Talent Academy is part of the Fast Track Digital Workforce Fund, which is currently being run by the Lancashire Digital Skills Partnership, Greater Manchester Combined Authority and the Department for Digital Culture, Media and Sport. We've been running this programme since the 6th of July, and we're now on our second cohort, and by the end of November we'll have 70 graduates that are upskilled and ready to move into roles that include graduate digital engineer, Internet of Things engineer and cloud engineers. So at Info Talent, our aim is to help companies future-proof digital transformation by helping them to recruit those local motivated graduates that can drive that technology adoption. We recruit graduates from our partner universities, and I have got a slide a bit later on just to show you which universities we're working with. And this is an equal opportunities programme, so it's open to all graduates. We welcome applications from female engineers and people from BEM backgrounds, because this is all about helping employers to access the most ambitious, highly skilled and diverse talent across the Northwest. And they complete our 12-week programme, which is a fast-track graduate development and recruitment programme, which upskills them to become Amazon Cloud practitioners. And also they complete a soft skills development track with our personal development partner to help them learn more about their vibe and what they transmit, which I guess ties into what Jack and Emma are saying about, are you always representing the best version of yourself online and also when you go to interview stage. And all of our graduates are also mentored throughout this programme. So I personally mentor half of our graduates and one of my colleagues mentors the other half, and that's just to ensure that these graduates are fully supported so that when they go into the employment market, they are work ready, they're ready to go and can really help to drive change within a business. So we develop our grads across 3 core areas. So first is business. So we develop our grads to learn about business use cases and development, how they can take the data that is being collected in the cloud and use that to help drive productivity and performance, and also business planning, sales and marketing. And the reason that we give them that experience is so that when they join a business, they're essentially an all-rounder. So they're not just being dropped into the engineering department and being left to work behind a desk. They can go to the sales team and help them with putting brochures together. They can help with business planning based on these technologies that they're trained in. Then it's the technology itself. So we're training our graduates to become cloud engineers. So the technologies that we teach them on are the technologies that here at Info Group we've been working with to bring into companies across the Northwest for the past 2.5 years. So that's things such as Internet of Things, cloud data visualization, machine learning and artificial intelligence. So over the course of 12 weeks, our graduates learn how to use all these technologies, and then at the end of it, they sit the Amazon Cloud Practitioner exam and become the most highly skilled junior engineers available on the market. And then obviously, soft skills development, so just making sure that they've got that all-rounded experience. So our partner universities, we are mainly part of UCLan, as we are a joint venture business with UCLan. So we have a great partnership with them to accessing talent. We also work with Edge Hill University, the University of Salford and all the other wonderful universities you can see here on screen. So we've got a good reach into the Northwest in order to make sure that the talent that we're growing here is homegrown and remains in the region and are helping our region with our prosperity rather than moving off to London or into Manchester to find jobs once they graduate. So I'm really pleased today to be joined by 3 of our wonderful female junior engineers. These 3 young ladies have been working relentlessly over the past 12 weeks and they have just completed the Info Talent Academy on the 25th of September. They're 3 fantastic examples of the amazing talent that is in the market at the moment. So I'm going to pass over to Andy, but before I do, could I just ask our 3 graduates to introduce themselves, just a quick line or 2 about yourself and what you studied at university. So could I start with you, please, Yem?
Hi, my name is Yem, or Yem Marai, and I studied chemistry at the University of Liverpool.
Wonderful, thanks very much, Yem. And Abby, can you say a few words about yourself?
Hi, I'm Abby, and I studied physics at the University of Manchester.
Wonderful, thanks. And finally, Rimsha.
Hi, I'm Rimsha, and I studied maths and finance and management at University of Central Lancashire.
Wonderful, thank you very much, ladies. So I'm just going to stop sharing my screen because I'm going to pass over to Andy now and he's going to just ask the graduates a few questions about their experiences and what they've learned over the past 12 weeks. So I'll just put my screen down so that you can see them all as Andy is moving through the panel. So over to you, Andy.
Hi, good morning, everyone. So I just want to go through and ask the ladies a few questions now about their experiences. So kicking off with Yem. So Yem, so what attracted you to working within technology?
After I finished my chemistry degree, I think it just put me off doing anything to do with chemistry. I think once you do a subject in something at university, it might make you hate the subject. So I was like, no, I don't want to go into chemistry. And then whilst I was looking on the job market, I realised that all of the jobs that were there were mostly software engineers, engineer here, engineer there, and I knew that the job market was in tech. And that's initially what got me in. And then the salaries as well were very lucrative for some of the roles. And I thought, you know what, I want job security and I want financial security, and tech is what does it for me. So yeah.
Yeah, well, you know, the way the tech market is at the moment, security is definitely one of the markets to go into. So how do you think the academy prepares you for a role as a junior engineer?
I think the thing that really helped me was the projects that I did with my partner, because as part of the project, it was a lot of self-learning and a lot of using online resources. Like, yes, we did the capstone projects, but we were sort of assisted with that. Whereas the project, it was like, now's the time for us to showcase our skills and go online and find resources to complete the project. And you know, the project was made up of loads of different aspects, which meant that it required different skill sets. It required you to do knowledge in different areas and connect them all together, rather than like because as the capstone projects, they were separate parts, but it's being able to connect those all together to create like something that is legitimate and that you could showcase to employers and stuff. And
go, sorry.
In job interviews, it's been so good because the project has been something that I could talk about, and it demonstrates my clear understanding of that. And also I felt like it highlighted to me what areas I was good in and what areas I wasn't necessarily good in, which has been useful even in job applications, because the project made me realize, okay, maybe I'm not so technical, and that maybe tech consulting is something that I'll be really good at, because I'm able to articulate the technical side of things, but not able to probably practice it as well as my project partner. So in terms of that, it's been really good, because then it identifies what jobs I should apply for based on the skill sets that I gained or that I discovered that I can do from the projects that I did.
Brilliant. So for anyone who doesn't know, when Yem talks about projects, this isn't a project that we just do, you know, this is not like a university project. These are live projects that we do with businesses. So these are businesses who are looking to maybe get grips with digital transformation, maybe don't actually understand it fully, and what we do is we partner with them and we'll do a project, and we'll put our senior technical team who will oversee the project, and then obviously then our cohort, our junior engineers will work on this live project and then present to the client. So absolutely win-win for both the business and also for the junior engineers. Cheers for that, Yem. So I just wanted to pick up with Abby. So hi, Abby. You okay?
Hi.
Hi, Abby. So I just wanted to ask you, Abby, so what do you think are the benefits of joining the academy instead of going straight into employment from university?
I think for me, I feel like the academy provides like that step to help you prepare for workplace experiences. So like at university, like most people will have completed projects and you complete them to a brief sort of in some capacity. Yep. But with the industrial projects that like Yen was talking about, you're working entirely to someone else's requirements and in a business setting. It's quite a different experience. So yeah, I think like we didn't only just have to provide the research, the work, and all the solutions, but like we kept engaging all the way through and communicating with the clients, and we had to make sure we were constructing like the most relevant solution. So at the end of the projects, like we also like had to present all this work as well in a very business-focused framework. This is, well, I studied physics, so for me, like business wasn't something I ever really looked at, wasn't something I knew much about, so it was quite intimidating. Stepping into work was quite an intimidating step, so just having this opportunity to sort of apply my skills in a more business orientated way with guidance along the way, I think was really helpful. I feel a lot more confident about sort of stepping into work now, I think.
Superb, great to hear that. So what have you really enjoyed about the academy?
I think for me, what really stood out was sort of the community and all like the support. As Danielle was saying, like we got mentored all the way through. And you know, like I know you can learn things yourself, but the academy sort of provided all this support to help you utilize all these skills. So I mean, experience is just invaluable. Yeah. And you're doing all this stuff with people who have loads of experience in the area, so you can just really pull from what they know. And also just sort of being surrounded by people with such varied backgrounds is really engaging. Like we had many conversations between members of the cohort about sort of challenges that people face in tech and where tech might go, and it was just a really valuable experience to be able to have these conversations. I really thoroughly enjoyed that.
Superb. Cheers for that, Abby. Yeah, so moving on to Rimsha. Hi Rimsha, you okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, good. And so I just wanted to find out, Rimsha, what drives your passion for technology?
So before the academy, I was kind of just like in a bit of a rut, and I tried to figure out what I really want to do. And basically, I do really love finding solutions. So I think that's what initially kind of drove me towards the maths. And it's kind of just basically knowing that something will either be right or wrong. And in technology, there are like a lot more routes to find the correct answer. And I've really enjoyed learning the trends that tech is following to see the progress and see the success. And efficiency is quite important to me. So working within tech will kind of provide me with the opportunity to find the new and productive ways to reach the end goal and kind of narrow in based on how efficient it is for the growing market. And then the industry itself, the tech industry, is at basically the forefront of research and development, discoveries and innovation. So it's all about breaking the new ground, and I find it really interesting to be kind of clued into how some of the giant works. So if some of you know the recent documentaries about social media and stuff, and just having the back knowledge of how an application is coded and stuff just made me feel like that much smarter watching it. So 12 weeks ago, I probably couldn't tell you what cloud computing was or how to connect a sensor, and I'm definitely way more intrigued about what tech is now since starting the academy. But to basically answer your question in brief, my passion comes from basically wanting to be more efficient and the need to provide solutions to everyday problems.
Superb. So going back to, obviously, Jan mentioned it and talked about working on the live client projects. Again, real difference from university, where I think it was Abby who mentioned it, where this is your project and we'll overview it at every step. This is a live project that you've got to present to a client within quite a strict deadline, and you're dealing with a client. So it's a lot more, the onus is on you to come up with the solutions. There's not a particular path to follow, it's for you to decide. So how did you find working on a live client project?
The client project was quite hectic to start with, because it was kind of just figuring out where I stand with all the knowledge that I need and things like that. And as mentioned earlier, the academy was basically a very steep learning curve, and I really felt challenged, so I learned quite a lot, and I took all of that knowledge, the basics, to kind of teach me how to self-learn and put it towards projects. So the opportunity to speak to industry experts was absolutely incredible, and it was a very valuable insight to the manufacturing industry, and it kind of really allowed me to grow my network. So the company I worked with were really good with supporting us throughout the project. So they were kind of just like messages day or night, and if you have any questions, we'll have all the input you need, or we'll even just let you have free reign of everything you want to do. So in that sense, they were kind of like really good mentors and gave me the confidence to basically in the future build a rapport with clients and build up a project from scratch. So if I was to look back 2 weeks ago when we started the projects, I would not be able to think I was going to make a simple data collection thing for them from scratch. But at the end, I presented my presentation on Monday, and looking at how far I've got, so rather than just being a simple thing, I've managed to make it more complex and allow them to kind of tie in all their business infrastructure together. It's been really fun and exciting, because I never thought of myself as a programmer, but now I can, and it's kind of opened me up to a lot more job opportunities in that sense. And hopefully I get to continue working in software engineering, where I wouldn't have thought myself a couple of years ago.
Superb. No, it's great to hear. So obviously those were just some words there, from the our junior engineers, and their experience of the academy. So I just wanted to very briefly go through. So I wanted to run through some of the ways we're helping industry right now. So obviously, very uncertain times. I know we're all sick of hearing that now. But digital transformation has never been more vital for the survival of so many businesses. In 4.0 Talent is innovating the supply of junior engineers and digital champions to the industry. We're already partnering with pioneers like Value Chain, prestigious global brands such as Bentley, industry giants like BAE Systems. And what we've come up with is a number of different solutions. So obviously we supply junior engineers, people who are very engaged, very passionate, and at the start of their careers. So the four options that we found so far that our clients have really engaged with are, so you'll all know, a permanent hire. So it's a permanent employee. It's a one-off fixed fee. It gives you clarity on the costing straight from the start. You get a dedicated junior engineer, digital champion, who can be part of your digital journey from day one. As a business, we don't just leave them there. That's not the end of the journey with us. You get bi-weekly check-ins where we can offer support and coaching for the first 3 months of their engagement with you. For some of the clients who know that digital transformation, know that the Internet of Things is something that they need as a business to go forward and to survive, but don't quite know what it is or how to do it, what we do is we offer, our next option is we offer a permanent employee, again on a fixed fee. Then we offer project support and management from Info Group. So you get monthly check-ins with our highly skilled technical team, and this can be tailored to meet your business demands and also your business budget. Our other option is a contractor model. So on a contractor model, the option gives you an on-demand workforce that you can utilize whenever the business requires it. So you pay a day rate for your junior engineer and digital champion. Obviously, if your business has got the bandwidth to manage that person, then we just supply them. However, again, if you feel as though your business needs the support and the project support and the project management, you'd get a dedicated resources from our senior technical team. Again, this is tailored to meet your demands and your budget. So my contact details will be coming up. And they'll be getting sent out to everyone. And I'm happy to have a chat with anyone if it's on the recruitment side, about how our academy can help transform your business, or from a technical scope. So if your business is a business that you don't really know what digital transformation is, you don't really know how it can affect, I can set up a call with myself and our technical team. And again, this is no obligation. This is a free call, and we'll talk to you and we can scope out to see if there's a project, that needs doing for your business. We can also integrate that project into our academy, like we did with the projects Yamarai and Abbey and Rimshaw worked on. And again, I can provide testimonials from our clients who, were absolutely blown away with the work that the academy have done. So yeah, that's all for me. Like I say, my details are there. Happy to have a chat with anyone, and and certainly don't feel stupid if you don't really know what digital transformation means or how it can affect your business. I'll get our technical team to explain it for you. All right, cheers.
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks, Danielle. Danielle, do you need to come back in on anything?
No, that's it. Just wanted to say a big thank you to our junior engineers for coming to speak to everyone today. I really appreciate your input and your kind words. And if anyone's got any questions, then please feel free to ask them.
Yeah, I'm sure amongst all our audience, someone's got some questions. If not for you, Danielle, then maybe for Yem, Abby, or Rimshaw. So don't be shy. Anyone got any questions?
I just noticed there's a question in the chat box.
Okay.
Yeah.
Justine, do you want to put that question directly, or do you want me to read it out for you? Go on, don't be shy.
Oh, right, okay. I've never been accused of being shy, so I'll jump in. No, I just found that fantastic. The work that's going on there is amazing, but obviously I head up a third sector organisation, so we always have this balance between, recruiting the right people into the organisation, but on a very tight budget. So it was just really to sort of float out there that, you know, whether any of you have ever thought about maybe a trustee role at board level in any third sector organisations, because the third sector does a phenomenal job across Lancashire, but obviously it does struggle sometimes in terms of digital transformation because of budget limitations. So that was it really. It was just throwing it out there as a consideration, but I'll certainly be in touch to have a chat about how we might look to digitally transform advocacy focus.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I say, so I head up the recruitment side, so that's my speciality. That's what I've done for 11 years. But we've got, you know, an industry leading technical team who I can set up a call with, and they can scope out the business and see if, you know, there is the possibility or what it is you want to do or what projects we can do. And that's what we've been doing, you know, from, you know, when I talk about the clients we've worked with and they give you, you know, the names like Bentley and Value Chain, we're also working with furniture manufacturers in Charlotte who understand that the digital transformation has to be, you know, to stay competitive in the market. They've got to embrace this. So, you know, it's from the multi-billion pound companies all the way down to, you know, like I say, you know, family-owned businesses. So there is definitely scope for transformation within every business. To what level, you know, I can set up a call and we can go through that in more detail.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Thank you, but really great stuff.
If you could share some info with us, Justine, for what you're looking for, I can circulate it to all of our female junior engineers as well as these 3 young ladies here. And if any of them are interested, I'll ask them to get in touch with you.
Fantastic, thank you.
I think that's a great opportunity, Justine. I'm a big fan of what Advocacy Focus do anyway, but for graduates to be able to have an opportunity to be on a board such as yours and see how a business actually operates and have an opportunity to share some of their skills and knowledge, that is just cracking opportunity for their CV. So I hope you get some uptake on that, but great idea, Justine.
Thanks, Emma.
Thanks, Justine. I should have known you wouldn't be shy. I should have known.
Can I just jump in? If something does come of this, if you want to send us a press release based on everything, you know, everybody working together and something good coming of this, we'd love to share that through our social platforms as well. So if you've got something, if something does come, just drop me an email, please, and we can send a press release out.
Don't worry, Debbie, you know we love a good marketing outpass, or as Rimsha, Jem and Abby well know. So if anything comes in, we'll definitely share it.
I was just going to say, there's not a day goes by without a press release from Info dropping in the inbox. Any other questions? And I'll open it back out. If any questions have jumped up for either Emma or Jack who are still on the call, then don't be shy. Everyone is being shy. So I will use the opportunity then to plug an event that we've got coming up. Regardless of your politics, I'm sure many of you will find this interesting. On the 27th of October, through our connection with the British Chambers of Commerce, we are enrolling people onto a webinar, which is, it won't be as open as this. You won't get to put your questions to him, but in conversation with Gordon Brown, discussing a global approach to rebuilding a stronger economy. Former Prime Minister Gordon Brown will be in conversation with, I can't remember the guy's name. And Adam Marshall, that's right, from British Chambers of Commerce. Thank you, Debbie. Registration via the East Lancs Chamber of Commerce website, free for chamber members. I'll be on it just because I think it'll be interesting. Full details on the chamber website. Anything else you need me to plug, Debs?
No, I think that's about it. Thank you.
Excellent. Right. Well, thank you to Forbes, first of all, our sponsors on our HR forum. And thank you to Emma for kicking off our content today. Thank you also to Jack from Personnel Checks, and also to Danielle and Andrew from Info, and our 3 grads, Jem, Abby and Rimsha. Best of luck in your future careers, girls. I know what you mean, Jem, when you talked about having done a degree, then completely hating the subject. That was me. I did physics and never went near it afterwards. So I admire you and respect you for being that honest. So well done. If you have anything to follow up with any of our speakers, all the contact details will be in the post-event email. And thank you for the contribution. Sometimes on these webinars, when we ask for conversation, tumbleweed jumps across the screen, and that's hard work. I love it when there's a bit of conversation between all our delegates and our speakers, so thank you for that. Next Chamber Live this time next week at 10:30 on Wednesday the 7th, and have a great afternoon, everybody. Take care.
Cheers.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching this Chamber Live video from the East Lancashire Chamber of Commerce. If you've enjoyed this content, then you might enjoy some of the other content that's on the screen now. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel.